Dear Mr. President, our beloved America was founded on common sense principles by men who were willing to sacrifice their liberty, their fortunes, and their lives. We have abandoned those founding principles today. If there was ever a crisis equal to the Civil War, this is it. Not since then have we seen such divisive politics and raging hatred fill the halls of Congress. Like then, we are in a terrifying war of ideologies. President Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself will not stand." You were elected because you gave us renewed hope for the future. We the people are not hopeful today. Only your moral courage and to selflessly lead can transform our broken spirit. Toward that end, my friends and I humbly suggest the following. First, ask those who receive the bounty of the nation to share some of their time in return. All able citizens receiving support from the government should also work in their communities to help restore America. Thus far, we have enabled people to not work rather than helping them by creating jobs and work opportunities. What is given without being earned quickly creates dependence and a loss of dignity. Propose regulations or sign an executive order which requires those who receive benefits to provide 20 hours of community work each week in return for what they receive. Create a group of volunteers and charge them with identifying opportunities to rebuild America. Our parks are suffering. Our schools desperately need help. Roadsides are overgrown and littered. Neighborhoods need watchers and rebuilders. Children need mentors. The elderly need companionship, care, and thoughtfulness. More public art is always needed. Libraries must be reopened. The sick and the poor need caring hands and service. All of these things are shovel-ready right now, and most do not require special training or higher education. Second, reconstitute the National Commission on Fiscal Responsibility and Reform. Recall that commission to update the report and send it to Congress for an up or down vote. The Super Committee has almost no chance of succeeding in its mandate. Third, lead the effort to reform the tax code in a revolutionary way. The IRS code is over 14,000 pages. Set the tone by asking your party's leaders to bring you a bill which eliminates 9/10 or more of the current code. At least that much was written by special interests. Mr. President, there is a difference between being prosperous and being rich in America. Those who earn a good salary, even a few $100,000 a year, are prosperous. But unless they have a large net worth, they are not rich. The rich are those who receive millions a year and or have a large net worth. The rich need to pay a fair share of the costs of running the greatest nation on earth. President Clinton said, "Taxing less and spending more. It's fun in the short run, but it's a recipe for disaster." Fourth, bring Main Street closer to you. Wall Street, investment houses, and corporate chiefs have almost destroyed this country in their unbridled pursuit of personal gain. Today, the 400 wealthiest Americans have a greater combined net worth than the bottom 150 million Americans. The wealthiest 1% of Americans holds more wealth than the entire bottom 90%. We have become a nation run by corporate values rather than the guiding principles that once inspired generations. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Corporations have all the benefits of man without the burden of a conscience." Main Street banks and small businesses are failing in record numbers. Bring small business people into your inner circle. They are closer to the real issues of today than the business titans. Most of the job losses have hit the middle class. Over $7.5 trillion in home values have disappeared, mostly from the middle class. No one can cajole, convince, or force any business to create jobs. The need for more labor will only come from new demand for goods or services. Over 70% of our GDP is based on consumption, and coincidentally, about the same percent of our citizens are or were in the middle class. Where is the consumption needed to create new jobs going to come from? Fifth, restore civics to the curriculum of our schools. Classes in civics, what it means to be a good citizen, need to be reinstated immediately. Our children need to grow up knowing their Constitution and their rights and responsibilities as Americans. Sixth, get America out of the wars in the Middle East. In 2001, we were attacked by an amorphous, tyrannical force made up of a few radicals, and in retaliation, our nation declared war on two countries, one of which, Iraq, was the sworn enemy of the same terrorist tyrants. Afghanistan, with the topography of Switzerland, is a tribal nation which has never successfully been occupied by any outside force. We sacrificed huge amounts of our treasure and thousands of our citizens over the past decade trying to prove history wrong. The following advice from President Eisenhower helps explain why we have been fighting so long. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. Enough is enough, Mr. President. Seventh, lead the charge to restore personal faith values in America. When citizens despair, they turn angry and they panic. They look to those espousing the strongest and simplest ideologies, no longer able to discern reason or common sense. The rise of fundamentalism is a dangerous sign of our times. President Teddy Roosevelt said, "No greater thing could come to our land today than a revival of the spirit of faith. A revival that would stir the hearts of men and women of all faiths to the reassertion of their belief in God and their dedication to His will. I doubt if there is any problem, social, political, or economic, that would not melt away before the fires of such spiritual revival." President Lincoln led our nation out of bondage and slavery. If he could speak to you today, he would beseech you to read his words, which are as true today as when he uttered them 150 years ago. We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have been preserved these many years in peace and prosperity. We have grown in number, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown. But we've forgotten God. Intoxicated with the unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God who made us. Mr. President, we hear what you say, we see what you do, and we believe what we see. You have been called for nothing less than to save our beloved nation from falling back into bondage and slavery. We hope that you will govern without concern for a second term while working diligently to earn one. May God bless you, Mr. President.
This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people no longer. It is a government of corporations, by corporations, and for corporations. How is this? Rutherford B. Hayes.
Part of our essential humanity is paying respect to what God gave us and what will be here long after we are gone. William J. Clinton.
Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and aren't fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. The world in arms is not spending money alone, it is spending the sweat of laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hope of its children. Dwight Eisenhower.
My reading of history convinces me that most bad governments result from too much government. Thomas Jefferson. Leyendo la historia del país, me convence que casi todos los mal resultados del gobierno pasa por tener mucho gobierno. Thomas Jefferson.
If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. Rutherford B. Hayes.
All men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Abraham Lincoln.